Okay, so we are here now in this course, and the recording has started. This is, of course, a course on the pre-registration system. My name is Shane, and I'll be running through the pre-registration system, setting it up, opening it up, and some of the common things and items that you might want to add as we go through your pre-registration. So I've added a course, or I'm sorry, a tournament in this in our homepage called TWU pre-registration. So it's not really a real tournament, of course, but I just ordered it just as you would, and then I went through the process of requesting the pre-registration just like you would for your tournaments if you wanted a public pre-registration. And when you come to our homepage, our landing page, you'll see that this link is here if you have your pre-registration. And so that's what I've done. And so I'm going to be jumping back and forth a little bit between a couple of screens. I do have the actual tournament open here because there's a few items that I'll show you in there. And then as well as I'm going to log in as an admin, which I don't think I did yet, and I didn't. And then I'll also be logging in as one of like a wrestler or parent or somebody that's coming in. So I'm just going to log into the pre-reg, and the way that I do that is I can just, there's a few ways. You'll have a link to take you in there in the pre-registration letter that you get, but you can always come to this link right here, click on pre-register, and then there's also this admin login button right there. And I'm going to go and sign with my username and password, and this brings me into my pre-registration. Now, I have added a few things just for the sake of this course for a couple of reasons. One, for the sake of time, and two, because there's a lot of times just like some code and things like that that, quite honestly, I copy and paste and don't necessarily know right off the top of my head. So it's kind of easier just to have a few of these items in here. And so let's just get started here. The first thing that I want to point out is that there is this setup guide that's in every pre-registration. If I click on that, it opens a new tab, and it kind of walks you through all of the steps. And some people see this and they think, well, oh my gosh, it's too much work, I'm never going to be able to do it. And it's really not that bad. If you follow those steps, people usually do pretty well. And we're going to kind of go through those steps. I probably will go a little bit out of order just to kind of stick with some of these links up here. But that setup guide is always a good place to look back. The first place that you do want to go to is this basic info tab, or link, excuse me. And when you get to your tournament, this is mostly going to be blank. The pre-registration name will be there. You can actually edit that if you want. You'll notice that I can click in there and make changes from there. It's usually not something you'll have to do or maybe even want to do, but you can if you need to. And then at the bottom of this page, there's this save button. So anytime I make changes here, I'll just need to save it, and then it will update. And what I want to do at this point is show you that if I am actually a wrestler going into this pre-registration, you'll see this is the actual page that I land on. You'll see that I've got a bunch of stuff already added there, but this is where we're going to make all those edits from here. My contact information, I'll go ahead and add this in here. You can put your name, your email, and phone number. It's a good idea for you to put your email in there. People, when they have questions, can go right to you and ask those questions. If they come to us, we typically forward them to you anyway, so it kind of saves a step. If you're collecting payments, which you may be doing, there's kind of three options, I guess, when you're doing a pre-reg. You can either have them pay on-site, which in that case, you wouldn't. There'd be no option for them to enter credit cards through our system. It's actually how this tournament is set up, just to make sure that somebody doesn't go in and try and register for this tournament, because it's not really a tournament. You could do online registration, in which we would collect that credit card information, and all the payments would be made right through our system, or you can do a combination of both. But for people that are paying with checks or cash, this is some information that they would, and I just put checks payable to Trackwrestling University, which of course they won't be doing. This matrix, this question comes up quite a bit, and the matrix actually, and I'm going to go back here and show you. Right now I have it set to no. So if I come here, you'll notice that this matrix is set to no. There's actually two things here that people ask about quite a bit. There's the matrix and the wrestler list. So if I come back, and again I apologize for jumping back and forth, just kind of how this system works. If I come back and flip this to yes, and again I'm going to save this, and again now I'm coming back to where I would register as a wrestler. If I just reload this page, you'll see now that that matrix updates. And there's nobody in here, but if I clicked here to open that matrix, it would show all of my weight groups, how many wrestlers are in that particular group and weight class. The wrestler list, this one is actually based on your release to public date. So if you wanted to show that, you just release that to the public. And you can actually get to that right in your tournament. If you go here, you can do it either place, but there's deadlines in your tournament that you could set to open that up. The next item is, would you like a static list of teams? That's not very common, but sometimes if you have a pre-registration and you only want certain teams, you could actually create a list, and then the people going to register would not have the option to add a new team. So I could add maybe all of my, I don't know, club teams in my area or something like that. So that would maybe be more of an invitational type situation. But typically you're going to set this to no, and that means that if my team isn't listed, then I will have the option to add a new team. And I'll show you kind of how that works in just a few minutes here. But I guess by default, this is no. The first time a wrestler or a parent or somebody comes through to register, if they add their team for the first time, then from then on, it's going to be in that list. And so people can select it from that list. If you set this to yes, then they wouldn't have the option to add any new teams, and they would just have to select from that list that you've provided as the tournament director. The track wrestling header, show you where that is. It's actually this part right here. So if I go to this track wrestling header, display that, and if I flip that to no and save that, you'll notice that now when I reload this page, that goes away. So some people, again, I've added some more text and some HTML here. Most people are going to leave this at yes, and I'm going to do that for now and then save it. But if you wanted to remove that, that's where you could do it. There's a few kind of fun things that you can add in here, and a lot of people like to do this if you have like a logo or something like that. And that's the header for this pre-registration. And this is HTML, so either you'll need to know a little bit of HTML, or if you have something that you want us to add, we can do that too if you just contact us through the ticket system. But basically, I've added this logo, and I've also added this text right here. So these are the two things that you can add in here. There's more than that, but these are the common things that you might want to add. And all I've done is I've added this text. I'm sorry, this code right here. So this is the code, the first part right here, most of it anyway. And again, if you know HTML, you can mess around with this. If not, if you let us know, we can add it. But you basically see that I've got this image that's a JPEG, and that's really what I'm displaying right here. And in order for that to happen, this image, whatever it might be, needs to be online somewhere. And an easy way to do that, if you don't have your logo or something online, if I go into your tournament and I go into setup, there's this item called file uploads, and you'll see that this is where I uploaded those files. So that track wrestling logo, of course, that's kind of all over the place online, but your logo may or may not be. All I do is click on this and I upload that file from my computer. And that actually, we can host that online, and that way you can take, and all you do is copy this link and then paste it. And so really that's what that is right there. So that's how you do it. And again, this code around it kind of specifies what we're asking it to do. And so that we can do. Again, that's something that you may need a little help with. If you like that kind of thing, you're welcome to kind of play around with that. The next part is this item right here that I added, where it says enter whatever text you want here. And if you notice, that's right here. You can put whatever you want there. It might be, times. It might be directions. It could be some other announcement. And you can do some things here. You can change the color. So right now I have this color as blue. Let's say maybe I wanted that. Well, let's go with purple, because I think people in this class probably like purple. So we're going to go purple. And then now if I come back here and I reload this page, that text can change to purple. So there's lots of different colors, and there's some codes, some number codes that you can use to get real specific with your colors. But you could just, there's most of the common ones. You can just type the name of the color in there, and you can update that. So those are some things you can add in there, and there's again lots of different reasons you might want to add that stuff. But the most common would be to kind of add that banner. The footer, I've also added this. And basically the footer goes on your invoices. So, and that's not commonly used, but you can use it. There may be some information you want people to see on their invoices after they've come in and registered. Maybe it's some payment information or something like that. But basically all I did was add your footer can go here. If I hit this display, it's just going to show me what it's going to look like here. And so you notice that I made it red. I could change the size and things like that. But that would go on the actual invoices that people would get. As I move down this basic registration page, this item right here, I'm considering an athlete is registered if, and I usually put the registration is submitted, and that's the most common, and I'll kind of show you again some of the different options there as we start entering a wrestler in here, kind of pretending to open it up. You could also show everyone no matter what. You could be the one that I just have, registration is submitted, or only if they've paid. So that's really up to you. It'll depend on your tournament. It'll depend a lot on maybe how you're collecting payments and things like that. So that would be completely up to you. But that's how you can change that. Who should you write the check out to? If you're collecting pre-registration money, when you're done, when the pre-reg is done, we'll send you a check. And then you want to see who, you'd probably have a name there. Maybe it's your club, of course, your address, and that's where everything would get sent to. The bottom parts are really about cards, whether you're collecting cards. We have two defaults in there, USA and AAU, and that's the reason those two are in there is just because of the agreements and the contracts we have with those two groups. Can show you a way in a little bit to add a different type of card if you're interested in that. You can actually just add it as a data field. But if you have a USA card or AAU card and you want to require that, you can do that. You can actually put a link to where they can go and purchase that too, and I'm going to show you where that shows up in just a minute as well. And then these are also related to those cards. Is it required during? Do you want to check it against the database with either AAU or USA? And then of course you could just change those the way you need it and then save it. So again, this is kind of the page that they come to. So when you first get yours, none of that stuff would be there, but those are the things that we added as a header in there. So, and again, you can get rid of this. So that was the basic information page. If I go to the next item here, I go to data fields, and there's a couple things. I've added one there, and I'm going to add another one for you. Actually, I'll add a couple more, but these are the things that are always collected in the pre-reg. These that are up here: first name, last name, date of birth, team, tournament division, and then weight class. And those things are required. You can't change that. These items that are in the blue here, these are kind of default data fields that you can either click on or click off by using your control key. So I click on and click off and I save those. And I think the best way to demonstrate this part is to start a registration. And so at this point, if this were a real registration, I wouldn't actually be opening this up, but for our purposes, I'm actually, this one's already open. I just want to show you what some of these things look like. So I'm actually going to go to this page where a wrestler would come, and I'm just going to click on register now. And I'll start my invoice here quickly. I type that right. And so this is the page that they come to when they're going to register, and then they would add a wrestler, and it would open this page. And so you can do this. There's no real way to test this in a testing environment, but you can go through if you have a pre-reg, enter a test wrestler just to make sure everything's working. That's not a bad idea. And then you can either have us delete them out. In some cases, you won't be able to delete them out, but you'll know. Just make sure you use a name or call it test or something like that. So that's what I usually do. And so this is the page that comes up. And so these are how those data fields are entered in here. So these are the data fields that we're collecting. And you'll notice that this first one here, you can enter your track wrestling number. If I entered this in here, it will autofill this form based on what I have in my profile. So some people do that. You don't have to use that. This is where you would put your card, and this is where I would put the link in there to link directly to have them purchase it. So if you remember this, back on the basic info page, and again, I warned you I was going to jump around a lot. It's just kind of the way this one goes. But I added the track wrestling homepage, which wouldn't make any sense, but just as an example, I would probably have either USA Wrestling or the AAU site or something like that there. But from here, if they click on this purchase now, it'll take them right to whatever website you specify. From here, then I would type in my name, my first name, last name, date of birth, grade, state, and if you remember that on the data fields, if I get back to my page, these are the things that are always required. And so these things we're always going to collect. Now, let's say, for instance, that I don't want to collect a card at all. I could use my control key. I could click off of that, and I save it. And so now you notice that these other ones are selected because they're blue. And if I come back and reload this page, you'll notice that if I add the wrestler, that card area is gone. So that's how you can either add to or, I guess, subtract from this page, depending on how much or how little information that you want. And again, those are in these data fields here. So if I wanted to get rid of, email or something like that, or grade, I could certainly do that. The other thing that we can do is we can add some fields, kind of some custom fields, and that's what I did down here. And I added a waiver, and I'm going to do that in just a minute. Probably the most common one that people want is a field for actual weight. And so I'm going to skip over and I'm going to show you my divisions here too. So I've added these divisions. I have an 0405, and if I look at this, this is a like a predefined weight class type of situation. So that's pretty straightforward. But then I also have this one that maybe I wanted to use block bracketing. And in the block bracketing, our system requires that there's one weight class that a wrestler enter. And so what we do is we have you put an NA weight class in here. You could call it all, you could call it everyone, whatever it is. We always say NA. That just kind of lets people know that that they need to register for it. And when they come in here to register, it's the only weight class they're going to see. And that's really how you want to set up for Madison block bracketing. So if you're going to take actual weights and group them together. But if I were doing this, I'd want to have a field in here for them to put in their actual weights. And so you'll notice that isn't one of the default fields. And so I could just add that field. And I would come here and I would add a data field by clicking the button. And I would call this actual weight. I type the name in there. I would actually use, in this case, I would use a text box. The numbers, sometimes we run into trouble there, so I would probably just use a text box where they're going to put that in there. I could add a pick list, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. If this was them selecting the yes or no type question as a data field, I could use a pick list here, but I'm just going to put no there. And then for data entry instructions, I could put enter actual weight. I don't think for this field you would actually need to, but I'll just show you where it shows up. I think this one's pretty self-explanatory for people. There is no default value, of course, because we're going to have them enter something in that box. And then I would want to require it to make sure that they have to enter something in this field before they move on. And then I go ahead and I add the field. So now you'll notice that that actual weight field gets added. And I'll show you in a minute where that ends up on that on this registration page as well. I'm going to add a couple more just so we can kind of save some time in there. The other thing I want to show you is that in here I added this waiver, and that comes up a lot. Maybe you want your people going through to see and then acknowledge that they've seen a waiver, kind of a liability type thing. And so I added this field, and I'll show you what it looks like. I added this field, and in the field name, I added please initial to agree to the terms of the waiver. And again, if you have questions on this, we can certainly add these quickly for you. We do it all the time, and when you're only doing it once a year or whatever, then of course sometimes it's hard to remember what you did. But I wouldn't put a pick list. And then in the data entry instructions, I added this code that actually links to this online. And if you'll notice, I don't want to do that. I actually uploaded. I have my waiver as a Word document, and then if you remember in my tournament, I just uploaded it here. So I called it "This is your waiver." So I uploaded it. Now it's online, and I can link to it from here. And of course, I would require this field. When I save that, you'll see that this is what it is. And I can show you what that waiver looks like. It opens like that. I can open this or download it. I think it's probably going to open on a different screen. Yeah, it opened on my other monitor. Sorry about that. But this is what it is. So it's just a Word document that I have. So if you have a Word document or if you have a waiver online, you can link to that from there too. So those are data fields, and I think what I'll do at this point is show you the rest of this as we go through. So I have these data fields here. I'm going to reload this page. And I'm going to simulate a little bit, adding my wrestler just to show you where these are. So I logged in, I click Add Wrestler, and then I'm not going to autofill, but I'm just going to type a test wrestler here. Actually, in case we do another one, I think I'll just name him Test 1, Test 1. I pick a birth date, and I think I had 0405 in there, maybe. I think that's what it was. Let me look quick just to be sure. I'm going to look at my groups. I want to add them into this one. Yeah, 0405, that works. And so I pick my birth date, and what these date of birth ranges are going to do that I set up are going to make sure that when this wrestler enters date of birth in here, they're going to only get the options to fall into the right groups. So you don't have to worry about them trying to figure out what group they're in. You'll set up your date of birth ranges, and they'll have to enter from there. You can pick a grade. Not sure what a 2004 would be, and I pick my team. So you'll notice here, well, I did this earlier, but if my team wasn't, I could either select this test team, because I did this when I was practicing on this event, or if I wasn't from that team, I could add a new team by clicking there, and then I would enter tests team or something like that. My hometown I would put in, and again, I'm just making sure everybody realizes this is fake data. My email gets populated. And then from here, I could click to see the waiver. Again, that would open up that waiver that I showed you just a minute ago. And I would have to acknowledge right here that I read the waiver. So I might put I would add my actual weight. Maybe that was 99 pounds. And then I select the registration. And this is where it opens up. You'll notice that I had a 2004 birth date, and my only option here is 2004, 2005. So that's kind of handy. My weight class, I could pick the right weight class. Of course, I'd be a 105 if I weighed 99 pounds. And then I can put my skill level in here, my separation criteria. I select that, and I go ahead and I add this wrestler. And now you'll notice that my invoice starts right there. If I go into my tournament now, and on the administrator now, if I come to my wrestlers page, this is where I'm going to see all of my wrestlers that have signed up. I haven't finished, and I'll show you in a minute when I finish that off that I'll get the submitted column. Of course, there's not going to be any payments received here. If you were collecting credit cards, you'd see a timestamp here if a payment was received. But this is the general, I guess, basic information about your wrestler. And everybody, you'll just have a list here. You can monitor from there. You can actually search this list with a bunch of different criteria. So that's kind of how you'll keep track of your registration as it continues to go on. The one other thing that you'll notice when I went through and entered that, there was a separation criteria value, so it was that skill level. And if I wanted to remove that, I would actually come back over into my tournament, and that's actually in the separation criteria area. I could edit those from here if I wanted to, and if I wanted to exclude it from my pre-reg, I could pull it off right here. And I would just save that, and actually don't save that one, you just flip it, and then it would not be collected during the registration. A couple other items that we can do from here. My pre-reg limits, of course, I would set that, and that's just based on how big my tournament, where I want to cut it off. Same would be true for deadlines. When am I going to close it out? This release to public date, of course, is going to be whether or not people are going to see a list of the wrestlers. And so if I do go to this online registration, so let's say I start a new one right here. Remember that in here I had this wrestler list, and the reason for that is because I opened this up yesterday. If I switch this, and let's say that I put it to tomorrow, and I save that, now people won't be able to go in and see this wrestler list. So if I reload this page, that wrestler list is not released, and here's the date that I picked for it. So again, you can edit whether or not people see a lot or little with those deadlines. Divisions and weights we talked about. I'll touch quickly on the date of birth ranges. I think that makes that's pretty straightforward. But if I have a date of birth range set up, and you'll notice that I go 1/1 through 12/31, and that includes everybody in both of those birth years. You can adjust those if you have some sort of different way to do birth dates. If it's the day of the event or something like that, you'd want to adjust those. But basically, if somebody puts a date of birth in, it's going to pick, our system's going to pick which group that they fall in. So there shouldn't be too many issues with people being in the wrong group based on their date of birth. Anything else here? I can change my entry fees from here. So my on-site, my pre-reg or my on-site fees from here too. So, and then to add weight classes, of course, I would click in here and I would add these weight classes from there. The wrestler or the teams, again, you'll see as your teams get populated, as people are registering, you'll see that the teams get listed here. This would also be where I would come if I was adding a static list. So if I wanted to list the 10 teams that could come, I could go ahead and add those there. Typically you won't do that, but if you wanted a static list, you certainly could. Again, we talked about the wrestler page. A couple of other items in here that aren't as commonly used, but I will touch on them. Coupons. So what a coupon is, and I think it actually says right here, yep, it allows you to specify codes that people can enter to get discounts on their registrations. So let's say that maybe you wanted a coupon code for your own club members and you wanted them to get $10 off or something like that. I could come, again, I click this coupons link and I click add coupons, and I would call this maybe my team. And you would probably actually put the actual name of your team, but you could name that whatever you want. That's only what you're going to see. And if I wanted $10 off by using this coupon, I would put 10. And maybe I know I have 20 kids on my team and I don't want anybody else to use it, I would put 20. And then I would add a code. And I could add that code as something real generic. I could make it kind of complex. But maybe I would just, I'll put code in there just for the sake of simplicity. And then I would go ahead and add that. And now what I would do is I would either, give this to my wrestlers, whoever should get that code and that discount. Maybe I'd email it. Maybe I'd, tell them just to enter code when they go in and enter in a coupon. And then when they do that, they would get a $10 discount on the registration. So, and this tracks how many people have used that code. So you can go ahead and try that. You could put as many codes here. I think you can put as many as you want. You can put an awful lot for that matter. So you can put a bunch of them in there if you want to go ahead and do that. Under extras, this isn't used all that often either. I have T-shirt in here, and I'll show you that in just a minute, but probably a real common one might be like a coach's band, maybe a spectator pass or something like that. But I just come and add an extra, same kind of thing. Maybe this would be coach's band. And then the price on this is, let's say it's $20. And I can add that. And then now when I go through, I would be prompted or asked if I wanted to buy any extras. And I'll show you that in just a minute, but I do want to add one more thing. Oh, actually, I already have it added. I can show you just now. I also added a T-shirt, and maybe my T-shirts I'm selling are $10. This one is kind of interesting. I can add, if I click on this to show you what I did, I actually added an image so they can actually see that when they go through. And so let me show you as I go through. Let's say that I'm now this wrestler again, and I'm going through the registration process one more time. So I go through register now, and I start my registration. And I go to continue. And this time I'm just going to change just a little bit as to what this wrestler is like. And I just want to check my date of birth ranges one more time. If I get them in the right groups. I think it was 0203. Yeah. So I'm going to put this next wrestler in the 0203. So I land here. I click add wrestler. I'm going to go test 2. And then I go test 2 again. My date of birth, again, wouldn't matter at all. They'd put theirs in, but then I had an 0203. So let's say I'm an 02 birthday. Again, don't know what grade that is, but I'll guess. I'll go from Alabama again. I can select one of the teams that I've already got in there. So I put that there. My hometown, same thing. I could click to read the waiver, but we've already seen that. I can initial. In this case, I'm gonna skip this one for just a second. Go to the registration. You'll notice that this is the only group that I can enter. I only have one weight class to pick from now because that's my block bracketed. And then I could go through and put my skill level there as well. If I had a coupon code, which I do, I can type code because we already have that. And then let's say that in this case I forgot to add my actual weight. This is a required field, so if I go to add this wrestler, the system prompts me that I have to add this, and I'd go back and I'd say, oh, that's right, I weigh 56 pounds, and I add the wrestler, and then now that wrestler gets added. So now the invoice is there and started. If I click, I could add another wrestler to this invoice if I wanted to. If I click continue, this brings me to this extras page. And so on the extras page, you'll see here that I have my 2 things. I have my T-shirt for $10, and I have my coach's band for $20. So if I want this T-shirt, I could click here, and I would see that T-shirt, and I'd say, oh, that's a nice T-shirt. I think I'll go ahead. I could actually collect sizes from here and things like that. Or if I wanted this coach's band, I could go ahead and add it. I'd just go ahead and add one. So you see that I added that coach's band, and they can go through and they can purchase those things. They don't have to. It's completely up to them. And you'll notice that on my competitor entry fee, it must have been a $13 entry. and I had that $10 coupon code that's getting applied right there. And now when I click continue, I would go ahead, I'd have to fill up my address here, my zip, my phone, and then I think you need them both in here. And then once I get through this, I go ahead and I submit my registration, and you'll see that I can do a copy of my invoice from there. If I go back in as an admin, and I look at my wrestler page now, you'll see the difference between those two. My second registered wrestler, the test 2, I went through that process and I submitted it, and so now you see the submitted column filled in. The one before, I backed out before I got there, and that submitted column is actually not there. So those are kind of the basic overall items. A couple of other things that you may be interested in. If this isn't the first time you run your tournament and you want to just recreate what you did in the past, this importing link, you can import basic info data fields and teams, or you can import divisions, weights, and things like that. And the truth is, this one right here, you wouldn't necessarily have to have, I mean, this could be from any tournament. Let's say you're using some standard divisions or weights. You could import those from another tournament that you knew was or had used the same weights and divisions that you want, and then you could just edit from there. But you could import and set this up pretty quickly. And then statement, if you're running a pre-reg, there's nothing in this one. I can click on it. I'm not actually taking any credit cards, but if you were taking credit cards, you would have a statement here that would show how many wrestlers have registered, how much money we've collected, the fees associated with, and then essentially how much that check that you're going to get back would be. So that's how you would see that. You can always come here and go to statement. Boy, I think that kind of covers a lot of this. I guess what I'll do now at this point is kind of open it up for questions, and then just kind of see what what questions you have from there. So feel free to ask away.
Okay, so going back to the basic info,
yep.
In there you had mentioned as far as the payment, you've got on-site, online, and combination.
Correct.
I was actually under the assumption that we were, for our tournament, we were going to do just credit card only.
Uh-huh.
But you're saying that it's actually a little bit more popular for the combination. Do you think we risk losing any entries because of that?
Nope, I don't. If I said that I thought it was more popular doing that, I guess I didn't intend to come across that way. So that's completely, nope, and if I did say that, I apologize. I don't know that for sure. I would say that it's fairly split between the three. It all depends on kind of how you want to handle it. So the one benefit of doing all online payments is that you know your numbers beforehand, so they're right there. So it all depends on whether you really want those walk-ins, whether you don't want them. And I guess that's, again, not something I could probably say with any certainty as to what would be the best or the most popular, but completely situational,
but
I
it
guess
is something. Okay. It's up to the club, I guess, as far as making that decision. Then. Okay.
Yeah,
the next
I would
one
say
is,
so.
The next one is in the, I think it was, oh boy, you had mentioned the waiver before.
Yep, that's in the data fields. Yeah, and I know I jumped around a lot. The free reg is kind of like that. It's working all over the place, but
sure. So for the waiver, which I think is a great idea, and we're definitely going to do it. I was wondering about the format. Do you have any insight there? I mean, if I use say Microsoft Word, am I going to run into any issues where people aren't going to be able to actually view the Word file? Is there? I mean, do I put it in like more of a text format to be safe, or?
No, again, I think a Word format would be just fine. I know a lot of people use that format to do it. If you have it online, so let's say you have that maybe already online at your website or something where we can use, say,
that's how I can do it. So we can put it up on our site.
If you had it
we
there,
can put it up on our site, and I can just link to it.
Yeah, and then we just in here we just put that web address, and then we can link right to it. So it really all depends on what file. So some people don't have, and I use this example of a Word document just because I guess that's probably the easiest and most common for people to have a waiver. It might be the waiver that they typically put on their registration table, and people come in and sign it. So if they already have that format, it's an easy conversion, at least to get it online to cover yourself, liability-wise and things like that. So If you had it
Yeah,
online,
that
we
makes.
can just link it that way too. But yeah, when you get to that point, if you want some help with that, we'd be happy to walk you through it or even
Okay.
set it up for you. Just our ticket
Well,
system is
I mean,
a great way to do that.
just back to if you just go back to the data fields for the waiver,
Hmm.
or for the waiver, that actually. Okay.
And if you just
So,
wanted us to send you that code or throw it in there, if if that's something you'd like to take a crack at or if you're comfortable with, you can let us know that too. Basically, we're just showing where that target is and
okay,
linking to that.
so the data entry instructions. The data entry instructions is where you're getting the link to
That's
the
correct.
document.
Yep,
Okay,
that's right. It's
I
going
got
right
you.
in there. Yeah, yep, that's exactly right. So, and when you go
Okay.
back to the video too, you'll be able to watch this, like I said. Or we're happy to help with this kind of thing too. That's no problem at all.
Okay. And then one last question, and this was probably one of the most difficult part of the. I've already set our tournament up, attending this and getting some more insight here. So we're running a youth tournament. I guess you would call it block bracketing. It's a four-man round robin style.
Mm-hmm.
What I was having troubles with was the birth year versus the grades. We actually have groupings by grade, but then I also had birth years. Now, I guess what I'm concerned about there is am I going to possibly, they can overlap, is that correct? As far as the birth years or not?
Your birth years you can. So when you set up, that's correct. If you set up your date of birth ranges, you can widen these and overlap them. So I think maybe your question is if you are going to run a grade level tournament versus date of birth, then you'd want to do that. You'd want to widen these out and overlap them just to make sure you catch those old or young kids for the grade. So that's a good point. You're right. That's exactly how you should do it. They can overlap for sure.
Okay.
Yep, that is, and that's I missed that point too. The one other thing that I forgot to mention, and I had this planned, and as we got going, I kind of stopped too early. The one last piece to this is to import into your tournament. And so I just want to show that kind of quickly, and it's a real easy process. But if I go into my tournament, so we're back here now in my tournament site, and what I'm going to do is if I go to registration, and then import upload. And I'm going to import my wrestlers from the pre-registration. So again, you'll notice that in here, if I have that one wrestler, actually two in the pre-reg, one that's actually submitted. But if I go to my wrestlers list, there's nobody in here. And we get this question all the time too. And again, this was kind of a big piece to this, and I'm glad I forgot before we turned off the recording. But all I do is go to registration, import upload, and then I'm going to import my wrestlers from my pre-reg. And when I click on this, it brings me to this mapping page. And basically, these are all of the items from your pre-reg, and then we're just mapping where we're going to bring it into in your tournament. And so first name to first name. Most of this you don't even have to mess around with. The one thing that I'll need to do is add any of those extra data fields that I added. So I come here and I want to pick my actual weight. And I'm going to bring that into my actual weight item here, actual weight to actual weight. And then maybe I want to see who initialed the waiver, so I could do that here. And then I would probably put that just like in an extra field, and that way it'll just mark it who initialed that. And if I had anything else in here, like I might not bring my t-shirt stuff and things like that, but anything that I want to use in order to bracket my tournament, I would just go ahead and do that. I would save these settings just to make sure I keep those in there. And then I'm going to insert those wrestlers. I could do one group at a time, or I could do them all. And in my case, I'm going to do them all. And then I'm going to select paid and unpaid only because I didn't collect any payments there. And then when I import the data, I'll be prompted to type both. And this, of course, would depend on whether you're collecting credit card payments or not. So that would all depend on your pre-reg, but it should walk you through. And when I get here, I should see that one wrestler gets updated. Actually two, because of the way that I had it set up. So both those wrestlers come in. Now when I come to my wrestler page, you'll see that I have both of those wrestlers in my tournament. And they came through that way. So that's how you would import in those wrestlers. So you'd probably wait till after your pre-reg was done and closed, and then you go ahead and import. And that's how all those wrestlers kind of get from one piece of the system, which is the pre-reg, into the other piece which is your tournament. And in this case, then I could go ahead and if I had an on-site registration, I could add wrestlers to this. I would double check. If I had a weigh-in, I might do my weigh-in, and then I could go ahead and bracket from here. And that's of course another course for another day, but that's how you get those there. One other quick point too, and I missed this part. If I go to my extras, I can see those purchases by clicking on this purchases button. So you see that I purchased that one coach's band. It's there. I can actually export this whole, all of my purchases as a spreadsheet. It actually exports as an Excel spreadsheet that you can use. So I missed that as well, but I guess we got it covered now.
So on that note, and actually I was thinking of it more so as far as the pre-registered wrestlers. When I export the data, the data remains in the tournament at all times. I'm just exporting it out. Every time I export it, it's not like it's wiping out the data that's in there right now, right?
That's correct. So here's your example right here. These wrestlers are still in the pre-reg. That's right. Yep. So when you import them, they don't go away. The one thing to keep in mind is that any changes, not any changes, but certain changes you make on the pre-reg side also affect the tournament side. So if I were to go through and change a weight class or something, it would affect both sides. So it's important to, if you're not sure if you should make some changes, just to let us know on that one. But yeah, that's a good question. After I import from the pre-reg into the tournament, these wrestlers still stay here. And as a kind of a interesting note, if you come back next year and let's say, I have my 500 wrestlers in my list here, and I want to email all of them, hey, here's the date for my tournament next year. I can come through and I could do some filtering by search. Maybe I want only certain states or teams or something like that. But if I hit the send email button, I could actually send an email right from our system to each unique email address from here. So you can do that during your pre-reg while it's going on. You can actually go back, like I said, next year and get back to those people as well. So kind of a really, really powerful piece that I think most people notice in here, but it's important to point out.
So I don't know if this is beyond the scope of this class, but so what we're actually doing with the club tournament this year, I had to talk him into it this year for using Trackwrestling, and what I got buy-in is what we're going to do is we're going to use the pre-registration part of it first, and then next year, so long as everything goes well this year, next year we're going to run the tournament with Track. Okay. So what I'm looking for is just the data information. So as I export that data for all of my pre-registered paid wrestlers, that's all we're doing is I can just export that to an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. I'd be fine, right?
So that is true. So if you're not going to run the tournament on Trackwrestling, that's what this button right here. And again, that's from this wrestlers page when you get here. Yeah. And you'll export that, and that's exactly what it does. It exports as an Excel, and then you can work with it from there. So I will point out for anybody, you included, and anybody else that sees this, you wouldn't want to go through that importing process that we went through over here on the tournament site. Okay. Because once you import those into the tournament, then you'll get invoiced as if you ran the tournament. So you wouldn't want to do that import. You'd want to export from there. So yep. So as long as you just export that out.
Exporting that out.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're not trying to. Yeah. Again, if it goes into the tournament and you're using it to bracket and stuff, then of course then you get charged for that. If you don't, then there won't be a charge for the tournament.
Great.
Yeah. So any other questions? I know as you get setting your own up here, there may be some other ones, and feel free to call us or send tickets in. We're happy to answer those at any time. Any other questions? I think we had one other join us there too. I'm not sure if he's still there or not.
Yeah, I'm still here. I just didn't get the reminder email this morning, so.
Okay. Well, sorry about that. If you want, here, why don't I do this? Why don't I'll stop that recording and see if there's any questions that you have on stuff from earlier. Like I said, I recorded that whole thing too, so that's probably another way for you to see it. But I think I will stop the recording. If you guys want to stick around for a minute, I can hang out here too. So.